to the Dynasty Gambit. I'm back, guys. Man, I missed this show. I always look forward to this, man. I'm so excited to be back. I'm your host, Hamid Sandhu, and also you can find me on Twitter on FFJunkie85, a contributor for going2.com, and also weekly during the season on your start and sit questions at 11:30 with Gladys as our host. Kyle, what's going on, man? It's great to be back.
Hamid, and I mean, technically this is the first time we co-host together, so that's great to be. True. I guess not even back, but new to that. So yeah, I'm glad to this new dynamic we have. It's awesome. Glad to just you and me today. But yeah, I think it should be a good show. Looking forward to.
I see you're repping the Going for Two cap, and you have the T-shirt too to go with that. Seems like
yeah,
it. Look at that. It's like a staple. This is like your trademark. Gotta have the T-shirt and a hat.
Sell out to the company. Yeah, that's my trademark. Company man is what Ian Glendon usually says.
You are a true company man, my friend.
Well, I mean, India. Okay, well, we'll plug the ad right now. Going4two.com/store. If you too want to look like me, probably better looking than me, but you'll look real good in this hat and this shirt and all the other great gear that we have. If you like the no kicker stuff, all that gear. I know there's some people who may be opposed to that, so go with the logo. But all sorts of great stuff on going4two.com/store.
So, and speaking of which, maybe I should also invest in some and represent and not put myself to shame with you co-hosting with me. With that said, though, we got plenty of items to get to. Now, normally we talk about dynasty rosters. We break it down. We tell you what we think we should do, where your weaknesses are, or what kinds of trades you can make, and discuss your rookie picks. Today's show, we're going a little bit of a different route. We're going to talk about, of course, news and notes, of course, all around the league from a dynasty perspective. But we're going to be talking about sleepers from a dynasty standpoint and also players that you must own in your leagues. So with that said, we're going to jump right into a few news. And then, man, there's a lot that's going to be coming up in this next month. The month of June, starting with Julio Jones. Hey, there's a J there too. So Julio Jones, this is really interesting because I got a couple of things I want to talk about with Julio Jones. First of all, his dynasty value. Oh my God, the trades that I have been seeing for this guy is insane in a bad way, not even in a good way. Like I've seen trade offers, a second-round rookie pick. Come on, a second and a third-round pick. Come on, man. It's Julio Jones. I think he still has 2 solid years left. It's madness that people are trying to devalue him and try to get him on the cheap. Today, he actually went in a trade for a first and second rookie picks. He actually went in a dynasty league for that. So, Kyle, shed some light on the madness, man.
Well, it's funny because this isn't necessarily anything new. I feel like even last year talking about this, some circles of, Julio was already like basically once he reached 30, he got to a point where his trade value kind of plummeted and he was never going to give you in return of trade what he would give you in value in terms of production on the field. So this just accentuates it even further. I've got one dynasty team with Julio, and basically like this will be year 3 of this league. So in the startup, I took him a little earlier thinking I'm willing to have this second, third round pick, whatever it was, die on my roster type thing. Like I'll hold Julio till he goes off. I'm easier if you're always in contention mode. If your team is constantly looking to win, it makes sense to hold that. I get, teams that are trying to contend rebuild. I think at this point though, you got to hold him till the season starts, or at least until he gets traded and lands in a good spot. Like if he goes to a spot that's viewed as poor, then you're better off just waiting till the season goes. If he goes somewhere and it almost spikes his value, that might be a good time to get off. So if a trade does happen, kind of be quick to react if it looks to especially be a really good landing spot, because that's what might maximize the value.
Well, speaking of landing spots, so there are teams. Here are the teams that have been mentioned to be the potential landing spots, and there are trades available actually with the Falcons for Julio Jones already. The Patriots, the Colts, Raiders, and Niners have been rumored to be the ones who are most interested in Julio Jones. Now, this is my opinion. I do not think Julio Jones will reach his ceiling as he has with the Falcons if he were to go to any of those 4 teams. I can see his highest potential, if I had to guess, would be on the Oh, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. On the Colts, only because there's no really clear wide receiver one. Like Hilton is past his prime. And I can't believe I'm saying that because we're just talking about Julio Jones here as well. Julio Jones and Hilton are kind of like on the same category as far as their age is concerned and where they are in their careers. But of course, we would rank Julio Jones higher just on talent standpoint. But the Colts is where I can see him having the most value from a fantasy standpoint and dynasty standpoint. Now, that sucks to say that because the Colts are going to be what we're all predicting to be a very run-centric offense and let the defense keep you in the game and have Wentz kind of manage you through the games. And that's what the expectation is. What are your thoughts as far as those 4 landing spots? Where do you think is the best landing spot from a fantasy standpoint? And where would you value him if you were to trade him then after that?
It's funny because I actually think there's another landing spot that exists, another AFC team. I think that's also been kind of clear. Like it seems like the Falcons a little hesitant to trade, not just in the division, but also in the conference because all these teams are AFC teams.
Somebody's saying the Broncos.
No. I want a team with a quarterback.
You don't need Teddy?
Oh, I do, but unfortunately, I mean, even with Teddy there, that's still maybe the worst quarterback room in the NFL. And I mean, like that's at least in terms of situations you want to be. Like, I mean, I think at this point, Teddy Bridgewater or Zach Wilson, who's going to be a better quarterback this year, tough for the rookie to just automatically extend beyond him. But I still think the Broncos is no, that's not where it is. So of the teams you mentioned, I like the Raiders, actually. That same argument. I mean, Darren Waller's there, but suddenly if Julio's there, like, I think Derek Carr is just going to force feed both of them. Like both could see 120 to 150 targets, and then no one gets anything else. I could kind of get that with Carr. Like when he'll heavily target a couple guys. Like when it was Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree and Jared Cook, it was really concentrated on just those 3. Right. So I think that would actually be pretty good. Whereas because I almost think there's more talent on the Colts, and like you said, it the defense is better, so that maybe less pass attempts overall. I still don't like the Colts would probably be a better one on the teams you mentioned. The one I'd love, I think the most, is the Titans because they got a clear need for that other perimeter wide receiver. Right now, Josh Reynolds is that guy. Not to say he can't do that job, but I mean, if you can get Julio Jones, we know Julio, AJ Brown. Just because, yeah, that's another team like the Colts run heavy, but where it's more like the Raiders in that there's so little competition for targets that both Brown and Julio could get 120 targets easy. Like we saw Corey Davis.
But here's my problem with the Titans, though. Titans were if you had to guess, where do you think the Titans were ranked as far as pass attempts per game last year?
Probably 29th.
You're very close. Very impressive. 30th. They were 30th in the league in pass attempts.
So I was still overestimating them.
So at 30.1. Yeah. So you're banking on the efficiency. Julio doesn't catch a lot of touchdowns to begin with. I mean, he hasn't. I don't think he's had more than 8. He's only had 8 touchdowns once in the past 6 seasons. So otherwise,
but is that 7. Matt Ryan? I trust Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback more than Derek Carr, than Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. So I like that from a quarterback situation.
But man, you're really banking on high efficiency from Tannehill. To keep in mind now. Wait, does Julio Jones remain a wide receiver 1 with the Titans?
Probably not. I think Brown's going to be the guy, but I mean, like, okay, so like Corey Davis got 92 targets last year, yes. Right? As the I guess the number 2 option there, and he also, I mean, did he? Yeah, only 14 games, so he missed some time too. So, I mean,
not just Julio, that. Remember AJ Brown this time too, which also facilitated Corey Davis getting those targets.
Maybe, but I mean, I think we could say Julio Jones is better, even at this advanced age, a better wide receiver than Corey Davis, so he's going to command more of those targets. Again, sure. Like I think, and I mean,
there as well also frees up a ton of targets as well. There's over 100 targets available that left free agency. So there is. I do see your point, but I don't see a path to where Julio Jones would be a wide receiver. Can be considered a wide receiver 1 on anywhere but the Falcons, given the criteria of the teams that need the wide receiver. For me,
that's true.
I think his ceiling is a high wide receiver 2, with the occasional, he'll have his Julio game. No, I don't think he'll have his Julio game. I think with the Falcons he will. But the Titans, they're not that bad with defense. They're actually a middling defense, so they're a little bit better than the Falcons. And they're very run heavy, run centric. That offense goes through Derrick Henry. So long story short, to move on to the next topics, I think Julio Jones' value from a trade standpoint, in my opinion, I think a rookie wide receiver, a rookie pick, first round, I think a first and a second, but they both have to be high picks, I think is a pretty reasonable value to put on it. I don't think any first or any second combination works. They both have to be high rookie picks in order for it, in my opinion, to be fair value for Julio Jones, regardless of landing position, because I do think he still has 2 good years left in him.
Maybe. I mean, if I could get, like, let's say it's are you talking like super flex or single quarterback here? We're talking
single quarterback, or so you know what, or super flex. I mean, super flex you can devalue it a little bit. I can get that, but let's talk about single quarterback here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I get what you mean. Like, I wouldn't. Yeah, I would. If I was gonna get a first, I'd probably want it to be a top half of the first, like 106 at the worst type thing, because I might be able to get a running back. Like, if I want to pivot off the wide receiver position altogether, because like, would you rather have Julio or any of these Wookiee wide receivers, Star Wars, rookie wide receivers? Yeah, I think they're a little too young and not quite as developed. Not quite. I mean, to be honest, Julio's the most close to in height to a Wookiee than any of those rookie wide receivers. So, but like, I think Jamar Chase is maybe the only one you'd want really straight up over him. So yeah, I traded. It would be with the intention of drafting a running back.
Ooh, this is Kyle. You just opened Pandora's box for me with what you just said. So are you saying
that he's the only one, or that I wouldn't want Chase over?
No, that he's the only rookie wide receiver you would want over Julio Jones. So okay, in a vacuum, Julio Jones or Chase? You say Chase.
Mm-hmm. I think both startup and trade value. I think, yeah, and that's where like there's a difference, right? There is a difference in startup value and trade value. I'm specifically here talking about trade value. Like, if I'm trading away Julio, I don't want to just trade him just to get a rookie wide receiver, right? I want something to look at my team. So again, one of the rookie running backs. Like, if I'm trading Julio to get Javonte Williams straight up, I like that trade. If I'm doing it to get Jalen Waddle straight up, I don't like that trade. Then I'd want like maybe 2 first. Like, let me split it up into like a Waddle and a Bateman.
So you think a comparable trade value will be Javonte Williams straight up for Julio Jones? You think that's the value of putting on?
I'm not even sure.
Really high Javonte.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
you must be really high Javonte Williams.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I think more just really high on running backs, to be honest. Knowing me, like that's my thing. All right. Like, if I'm
you're the running back guy.
Yeah. It's the process trade there, right? Like, if you can get a rookie running back on the rookie contract, looking like, okay, maybe Melvin Gordon's there, but certainly starting next year looks to be a workhorse. I think I'll give up really any wide receiver to get that. Most any wide receiver. I know maybe the elite guys, you could more value than that from a trade value perspective, but I like the process of investing in those young running backs more.
Very interesting. And for our listeners here, keep in mind who Melvin Gordon, if I'm not mistaken, is a free agent next year. So that's something and I could be wrong about that. If I recall, I believe he's a free agent next year. So that is something
just a 2-year contract.
Yeah, he did. So that's something to keep in mind for you, Javonte Williams owners. If someone's trying to reach out to you for a trade, keep that in mind when you as an owner of Javonte Williams. All right, so that's on Julio Jones. I cannot wait till June to see where this guy goes, man. And oh my God, the Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitt truthers are gonna be going nuts. But anyway, we can talk about this. We can talk a whole show about this. So speaking of the Titans, how concerned are now? So this kind of goes into our main segment of busts, but how concerned are you about Derrick Henry? And hear me out on why. Jonnu Smith is gone. Corey Davis is gone. The offense as of right now, let's say if they land Julio Jones, I would still ask the same question. How concerned are you for Derrick Henry, where defenses are going to start honing in on stopping Derrick Henry? Because now on the outside, now they don't have Jonnu Smith up the middle to cover. So at this point right now, today, they have only A.J. Brown to be worried about. Let's just play hypothetical, yes, that they do land Julio Jones. I don't think the Titans will get him, but let's say they do, for instance. Do you think Derrick Henry is still a top 5 play? Let's say I'll say top 5. Is he a top 5 play for you in Dynasty?
No, but that doesn't the thing is, the risk with Henry, I don't think has anything to do with the receivers. It's the fact that he had, 378 carries last year and
He did.
19
He had a
receptions,
ton.
right? He closed in on 400 touches. It's a tough track record coming off those seasons. Now, the way Henry's kind of body is, he's sort of this like freak monster where you almost think he could survive that, but like we were almost saying that about Christian McCaffrey and not so much about his body, although, quite a built guy, but more about his usage. Okay, it's receptions. He won't get hit as much as it will in the trenches, and he still got hurt last year. So I don't think Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis leaving matters, because here's the thing: Josh Reynolds and Anthony Firkser, the teams are still going to have to defend those players. Okay, they're not as efficient as maybe both of those two. They're certainly not the pedigree of Corey Davis being a fourth, fifth overall pick the 1 year. Josh Reynolds doesn't command that, but it's not like defenses can just ignore him. Tannehill's still a threat, so I don't know that defenses are going to approach them any differently, because A.J. Brown's still a massive threat that teams have to focus on every week. And again, Tannehill, super efficient quarterback. You can't ignore that. So it's more about last year's workload than anything. There's really no one there to back him up that's like that. Like you have that much confidence in there. Maybe it's a backup by committee with Tennessee, but if he's healthy, it seems like he's going to get that workload. But for a top five, I would say no. And this might also lead into our next question of who I have in that top five.
Yeah.
Do you still have, even coming off the injury, do you still have Christian McCaffrey as the dynasty RB1?
Absolutely. 100%. No doubt.
Okay. Same here. But I also don't think, I don't have him as a tier above the rest. And so thinking of Henry, thinking of that age, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara are still there, but I like their pass catching upside more rather than banking on Derrick Henry getting another 2,000 yards. That's amazing if he does. And to be fair, he got 2,000 yards and he's still, if you were in full PPR, I think he finished second or third. Like Dalvin Cook still outscored him, and Alvin Kamara might have as well, again, depending on the different scoring settings. So he was 2,000 yards, but he still couldn't eclipse them. So I'm going to have him behind those two. So maybe at the cusp of five, trying to think. Then it's like, okay, do you bank on Saquon Barkley?
He played 16 games. Cook and Kamara missed games. I think Kamara missed one game, and Cook missed, I think, 1 or 2 games as well. So keep that in mind. They would have finished well ahead of Henry if they played all 16 games.
And then, so thinking of Saquon Barkley, banking on him coming back from the injury, and then you look at the young guys and Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift. Are they really that far behind him? So I would say probably. That's probably that range, Swift Akers, that's probably Henry Swift Akers is probably 6, 7, 8 for me. So I would say no, I have him outside the top 10 because I do have Jonathan Taylor as running back too. I don't know, that was the name I didn't mention yet.
We got to talk about. We're going to get to Jonathan Taylor in a moment, because I have him listed based on his current ADP in Dynasty as a bust candidate, and we'll get to that in a moment. Now, again. Well, I'll explain why before anyone else reacts to that. But because I have not seen someone ascend this much in an offseason. And the hype that's going on Jonathan Taylor is ridiculous right now, in my opinion. I was just doing some research. I came across a couple of stats and numbers that really made me scratch my head for a second. Is Jonathan Taylor really just a lot of hype here? Because the numbers tell a different story, and we'll get to that in a moment. But going back to Derrick Henry, so he's outside your top 10. But do you think he justifies the ADP? Remember, like you said, last year he was closing on 400 touches. The year before that, he had over 300 touches. We've not seen a running back with this many touches like this at this pace since Le'Veon Bell. So at this consistency as well. He didn't. I don't know if he touched 400. I think he did a couple of times, but I may be wrong about that. I'll have to check that. And Le'Veon Bell, we can see he's fallen off a cliff pretty quick once he left the Steelers. So with that said, so you have Derrick Henry outside your top 10. I also have Derrick Henry
outside the top 10?
Running backs.
No, that's tough. I said outside the top 5 for sure. I don't know about top 10.
Oh, top 5. Okay, so not top 10. So I think I'd say probably 8, 9, back end of the 10. But I didn't even mention Nick Chubb, so that's actually probably someone I would have ahead of him. So yeah, probably 9, 10 at So right around the cusp. Let me read off some names real quick, and you let me know if Derrick Henry's ahead of any of these guys.
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, Zeke Elliott.
I think they're equal. That's real tough.
I think Zeke's only 25. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're the same draft year. So I'm not even looking at age. I'm looking more at mileage. I think that I would have them ranked. I probably have them ranked like one after the other. I haven't finalized my rankings yet, but like that's right there. So I'll say basically a tie for now.
Jonathan Taylor.
No, I have Taylor higher.
All right, so that's 6 running backs so far. J.K. Dobbins.
No, but that's the thing about Dobbins, even though he's younger. Yeah, so I have Dobbins outside the top 10.
I'm very surprised by that, man. Dobbins is only 22 years old, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
But that's something that's going to come maybe a bit later in the show, so maybe I'll save that one for later.
Ooh, okay. I'll roll with that. That's very fine. CEH.
Probably not either. Like if in a startup, I probably would want to take CEH, but I think right now at trade value, CEH is so low that like you could. I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm trying to
no Mixon.
No, I have Henry higher than Mixon.
Eckler.
Henry's higher than Eckler.
Etienne.
Henry's higher than Etienne.
Gibson.
Henry's higher than Gibson.
Okay, so I cannot name 10 running backs that you will put ahead of Derek.
So I think I do. I think, again, I'm thinking probably running back 9. I think if I had to put a guess on it.
I would actually agree with, I think, running back 9, but if I go through these names as I started to think, okay, I would put them ahead of Derrick Henry. I'll put CEH ahead. I'll put Zeke ahead. I would put Joe Mixon ahead. I would put Eckler ahead. I'll put ETN ahead. So yeah, I actually have him outside my top 10 as I go through these lists. But let's move on to the next topic of discussion here. So Jonathan Taylor's draft capital. Let's get to this for a moment. I'm gonna have to cut this conversation a little bit short, only because we have to get to the main part of our show here. But Jonathan Taylor, and here's why he's actually. We're gonna jump right into the meat of our conversation show here. We're gonna talk about bust candidates and players that you have to have that are sleepers or breakout candidates. Jonathan Taylor actually is on my bust list. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do terrible. I'm not going to say he's going to be a bad running back. He's going to be really good for you in Dynasty and also redraft, but this is a Dynasty show, so let's stick to Dynasty for a moment. Last year, Jonathan Taylor, how many games did he have where he saw at least 70%, more than 70% of the offensive snaps? Not touches, just the snaps.
Snaps? I have a snap count somewhere, but I'll have to pull that up. If I had to guess...
Take a guess.
How many games? I'm going to say 5?
1.
Oh, okay.
1 game in which he saw more than 70% of the offensive snaps. Now, where he's being drafted, comparable to the running backs, here's the list of the running backs. Here's the list of those running backs and how many games he saw over 70% of the offensive snaps. Dalvin Cook, 8 games. CMC, all games. Now, I'm not looking at last year because he was hurt. The year prior to that, CMC saw 70% more.
Ridiculous. 100%. I mean, he had games with 100% snaps. He's a ridiculous outlier.
CMC is an outlier.
That's why he's still the 101.
He's a robot. Yeah. That's just insane. Man, I was shocked. It was like 100%. I saw like, what? Like, not even 1 snap to get a breath? Like, get some water, dude? No love to CMC. You stay out there, man. So Zeke had 8 games as such. Alvin Kamara had 5. Derrick Henry had 6. And for Derrick Henry, that was a little surprising to me. I would have thought he would have more games, over 70%. He's being drafted with these running backs. And now, keep in mind, last year, Marlon Mack was not available for the majority of it. Now, Nyheim Hines, the pass catching back, I think is the best pass catching back in that backfield. Now, I don't think his role is changing, so I'm not going to say that he impacts Jonathan Taylor a whole lot from a carry touches standpoint. Marlon Mack, however, does. They brought him back. They could have let him go. They made an effort to bring him back. So, for me, at least, at his ADP where he's being drafted amongst these running backs, I can comfortably name quite a few running backs that I would take over Jonathan Taylor. And that list that we went through, there's more than 10 that I can name that I'd take ahead of Jonathan Taylor because I just don't trust the offense to be able to give him enough touches to be efficient enough, because he'll need to have Eckler-like efficiency in order to be an RB1. I don't think he will have that because his PPR value is a little bit low because he's not being as involved in the passing downs. And because of that, I think he will not live up to his ADP in Dynasty. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so you look at the snaps; they're not great, but you also look at some of the touch counts. So he had 5 games of 20 or more touches. So that's carries and receptions. And yeah, only 39 targets, which is, I mean, to be fair, that's a number he could duplicate. 299 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. That wasn't a lot of where his production was coming from. It was, 5.4 yards a carry. So, you're talking about Eckler efficiency. I think Jonathan Taylor's a much better inside runner than Austin Eckler, and I don't see why behind that Colts offensive line, which did struggle a lot last year. We saw it kind of bounce back. Their adjusted sack rate was great because Phillip Rivers is one of the quickest quarterbacks at throwing the ball out. Same with the Steelers, right? The Steelers were number 1 in adjusted sack rate, yet they were 32nd in adjusted line yards. So they were the worst run blocking unit, but the best pass blocking unit. But the pass blocking stat is just tied to sacks. So that's so quarterback dependent. So you really look at, Football Outsiders has their adjusted line yards. That's what they kind of show as the independent of running back success, the offensive line blocking. And the Colts were 22nd for outside the top 20 for a good chunk of the season. And so Jonathan Taylor really did struggle early in the year when the Colts offensive line was also struggling. So if that unit rebounds to they were a top 5 unit the year before, if they could rebound to that, I think Taylor's efficiency should go up actually. And he was already pretty efficient, especially towards the end of the season. His pace at the end where he started 20. So if you start just before the bye week 10, 22 carries, 13 carries the next week against Houston. That's kind of weird. But 20, 16, 18, 30. Well, I figured that would be the team they'd run on the most, right? But yeah. So I felt that. I also think that Marlon Mack coming back, not really much of a threat. He's coming off a torn Achilles, and running backs coming off torn Achilles is zero track record. I think they brought him back.
Unless you're Adrian Peterson.
Well, that wasn't an Achilles tear. That was an ACL tear. Right, the Achilles, and it's too bad. Yeah, it's too bad the doc isn't here to kind of explain the difference because
that's true.
Maybe Marlon Mack topic will come back, but the Achilles tear, especially. I saw that contract as more the Colts doing Marlon Mack right. We're going to bring you in to kind of help mentor Jonathan Taylor, just be a guy in the locker room. He might start the season on the PUP list. We really don't know. It was early in the season, which is last year, I think it was week 1, wasn't it? So that's the only bright side for Mac is that he'll have basically a whole year to recover by the time the season starts. But I really see them not wanting to injure him. I'm almost thinking the undrafted free agent Deion Jackson that I really might get more carries than Marlon Mack next year. It'd be the bigger threat. So I think that's why I'm buying into Taylor, is that it really, to me, seems like a 2 running back a 2 running back room, really, where it's mostly going to be Taylor and Hines getting the carries or the touches. And again, Hines, you've already referenced that Hines' touches don't really impact Taylor.
They don't.
So, but you are right though. Maybe who I have kind of as a bust is also in on that. But this is the kind of the faith of Jonathan Taylor again. Some games only got 6 carries, right? Like the game against the Ravens, they lost in week 8, 6 carries, still finished the year with 232. So there feels like there's more meat on the bones there, where he could legit get to 300. My bust at running back, and he is a bit of a lesser price than Taylor, because you're right. I know fantasy pros, I'm looking at their rankings right now. They have him as RB4, so maybe not to what their ranking is saying, what their ADP is saying, but in startup drafts I'm doing, I've done 2 so far. I'm in the middle of one right now, and it's a triple flex. I'm with the Sons of Dynasty. They allowed me in their league, and you could start up to 3 quarter. Yeah, and wow. Jonathan Taylor went 108. It was him and McCaffrey were the only non-quarterbacks in the first round. And really the next running back to go was Saquon Barkley 209. So when you're talking about that, I was looking at that league and it kind of, this was one where, I was thinking quarterback in that first round all the way, and I actually ended up with going George Kittle because it's a start 2 tight end. There's a bit of a point per carry as well. So it's super balanced, but wow. In that league, I did also think Taylor was a little early. I was a little surprised that any running backs really went in that first round. I did a startup auction that started before the draft. Taylor was the highest priced running back in terms of the contracts won, $38 per year, whereas I got Christian McCaffrey $34 a year. Not much different, but Taylor's still the highest priced guy, right? So I get your point and thinking, I have him ranked at RB2, but again, it's I'm not going to overspend on him. If him at 108 or Saquon Barkley 209, yeah, I'll take Saquon Barkley 209 there, even though if I'm taking him just straight up without price, I'm certainly on Team Taylor. I do have some concerns about Barkley and his athletic ability. So he was almost my bust. Actually, just because of his price, because he is so based on his speed. Like we talk about Adrian Peterson, like Adrian Peterson and Saquon Barkley are not the same running back. They've not the same running style at all. Adrian Peterson, with his strength, can kind of overcome the ACL tear, but really with Barkley, because it's so tied to his speed, is that going to be affected? Is his high-end athletic speed going to be affected this first year back? That's why I'm maybe fading him a little. He was almost my bust, but I think it's Dobbins because can we guarantee that he's going to get to 200 carries? Like if it's something where Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are eating into his, and as well as what Lamar Jackson's getting, and Dobbins can't surpass 200 carries, he's going to have to be incredibly efficient and like really lucky in the touchdown department. I mean, he had a pretty decent touchdown year last year. And what did he get? I think 10? Like
I believe didn't the end of the year were like 6 games, 5 or 6 straight games. I only know this because I owned him last year.
I'm looking it up right now.
For touchdowns?
Maybe. And I think it seemed like it came in bunches, right? Like I remember like he got like 2 like week 1 or week 2. Or yeah, it was week 1. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he had touchdowns in 6 straight games to end the season. So, yep, it could if he kind of replicates that, because he ended up. What did he end up with? He ended up with 9, right? 9 touchdowns on 134 carries. That's incredible efficiency. But if that's to bank, and like
there's an offense not going to happen on, it's the Ravens.
That is, yeah, it is true. And Lamar Jackson really didn't get many goal line carries, so like he doesn't impact the touchdown upside as much as some people think he will. But it's more he's going to maybe prevent Dobbins from getting up to 200 carries. And it's one comparison I've been in some chats talking about is comparing J.K. Dobbins to Miles Sanders last year, thinking that their efficiency could carry them so high that like Sanders last year, I think was like a RB6, RB7 type thing, kind of around where J.K. Dobbins is going. And it's one of those where if you're banking too much on the efficiency and it doesn't come through, it could really hurt you. And I get that fear with Dobbins where he might get to 200 carries, but not eclipse it. Like again, Taylor last year, 232, and we still thought he could get more carries at times. Like we were still disappointed, right? Like I don't see Dobbins even getting to 232.
Pretty maddening.
So I get that fear with Dobbins of his usage might not be great. So that he's my bust, but it's funny that we're both taking 2 second-year running backs of this like amazing class last year, because all of them are getting pushed up. Like there's basically like half the top 12 dynasty running backs right now, or so like 7 of the 15 are all second-year running backs.
They are. That last year class, Akers, Gibson, that we haven't talked about yet. Boy, that was a fantastic running back class. But here's a question for you about Dobbins. Dobbins is a free agent in 2024. Out of his next 3 seasons, right? Because we know Lamar Jackson's not going anywhere. The next 3 seasons, do you predict that Dobbins will ever see more than 230 carries?
I could see maybe when Gus Edwards has to leave, I could maybe see that, but like the final year of his rookie contract, when then maybe at that point they'll be like, have 250, have 300, we don't care at this point, we're going to move on type thing. So yeah, I'll say yes, but I think that is closer to that 2024 and not necessarily this year, especially.
I believe Gus Edwards is a free agent after this upcoming season. So I mean, and remember, Justice Hill is still there, so I think Justice Hill has 2 years left on his contract. Whereas Gus Edwards
he was a Barkley. This will be his last year, I think, on his rookie contract. He was Josh Jacobs' year. So yeah, 2 years left.
That's correct. So Gus Edwards has 1 year left now. So
they could also sign somebody else or re-sign Edwards too. But yeah, I think I'm not going to say no to that, because I think by the end of his rookie contract, I could see Dobbins getting more work. But I think maybe early on they'll want to be more cautious because again, they have Gus Edwards there and they gave him so many carries. So I don't see why they wouldn't again next year, considering how efficient he was as well.
Right. So, okay. You have one of my favorite dynasty running backs as a bust.
Well, and you have one of my favorite dynasty running backs as a bust. So I feel like we're balanced.
It's too balanced. We're getting along just fine.
We also didn't consult on this before, so this is a complete shock to all of us.
Yes. Oh, by the way, for our listeners, we do not know who picked who. I don't know who his picks are for players that he's talking about. He doesn't know who I'm going to be talking about. So we're totally winging this, which is so much fun because I'm a little bit shocked right now because I just traded for Dobbins in the Dynasty League just last night, actually.
I'm curious. Let's hear what it was.
My trade?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you what it was. Let me pull that up. It was in the rookie draft, I traded Dobbins was my first pick at 106, I believe it was, if I recall. So he was my rookie RB1 in the draft class from the year prior.
So you probably thought you got good value at 106 with him then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So let me see here. The trade was... Sorry for our listeners here. I got to scroll through it quite a bit. This league loves to talk, I'll tell you that, man.
So just a quick thing. Like, I know one thing I've been hearing about trades recently is like people trying to get Dobbins for a lesser running back in a first, like Dobbins for Jacobs in a first, or Dobbins for Miles Sanders in a first, like buying on those guys that disappointed last year.
Puke all over the place.
Okay. I was curious to how you thought about those. Yeah.
No, okay. So here was the trade, everybody. So I traded Travis Etienne. This is a single QB league. Justin Herbert, Travis Etienne, Duami Brown, and Tony Pollard. He's a Zeke owner. And I got Tyler Lockett, J.K. Dobbins, and a 2022 second-round pick.
So Dobbins to Etienne, yeah, I'd probably rather have Dobbins because I think Etienne has that same workload problem this year, and it's a not nearly as efficient offense. So yeah, and then Lockett for Herbert and Diami Brown. I get that, yeah. And then you get a free second.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. That's a good trade. You see, that to me, that's good value. Like, that's not bust worthy value for Dobbins because he didn't give up the moon for him. Like some people have him as, like, again, if some people have him as a top 5 running back, even if like that's the price people are paying him at, then you're talking about a mid-second startup price. Like, that's getting up quite large for the trade value. That doesn't strike me as that type of
and
price.
I'm not that biased. I do know that Dobbins is not. Mm-hmm. He's not my top 5 dynasty running back. He is in my top 10 though. I value him very highly. So I'm very surprised. And the person I traded with, his QB1 was Kirk Cousins. So he wanted to upgrade at quarterback. I had Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert in this league. So I decided.
So you don't even mind not getting the quarterback back. Yeah, no, perfect. Exactly. You get more value by getting like now you've got. I mean, you basically turned one starter and Etienne into 2 with. I mean, you maybe need
the Herbert loss is not impacting. You already have Lamar Jackson, so
because that's a headache. That's a headache decision to make every week, right? Like you're just that's an agonizing decision that you don't really need to put yourself in every week, trying to decide between Herbert and Jackson.
Exactly. So I'm just gonna start Jackson every week. Now the only concern I do have, running QBs tend to not always end up getting hurt. Unless you're Michael Vick. Michael Vick did play a long time in this league without getting hurt significantly and very often. So I hope that now Lamar Jackson does not mind giving a hit or taking a hit. So it's a little bit concerning from a dynasty standpoint, but I'll ride that wave as long as I can.
I don't know, because I think it's really situation dependent. I remember, so we love our doctor here, but he's not the only doctor in doing fantasy football research. So Dr. Ethan Turner, PT, formerly with the Superflex Super Shows, where I know him from mostly, he did a study actually, and his findings were that quarterbacks actually are more likely to suffer like time missing injury, like multiple games missed injury from the pocket than they are on designed run attempts. Pocket and scramble are worse because on design runs, generally you've got the offensive line blocking. You're going in one direction. You know exactly where the hits are coming from. It's usually coming head on. In the pocket, Andrew Luck, I think the perfect example. How many times was he hit? Stay in the pocket. Like, he's not someone that had a ton of rushing attempts. Like, I feel like RG3 was just had a complete lack of knowing when to dive. Like, because like
that is true.
Like, I don't think Lamar Jackson gets hit the way RG3 got hit, right? And I feel like when we saw RG3 do it, it sort of soured us and maybe put our mind scope in. Oh yeah, these running quarterbacks get hurt, but they really don't. Like, that was him not less awareness on the field, because we see Russell Wilson how often he runs, and he's never missed a start in his career, right? Like, and he's
Russell Wilson has mastered the art of sliding after running. I would love if Lamar Jackson would also start taking a few notes there and doing that as well.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, maybe there is that concern, but again, I think the concern's a little overrated, especially considering how good that offensive line is. Like, if he was running behind a poor offensive line and there's guys breaking through the lines and constantly hitting him, yes, but because he's often getting that free space, like, he still is rarely getting hit. He's just so fast that it's so tough for guys to hit him. So I'll stay banking on that. Like, I'm not gonna.
Oh my god, it is insane how fast he looks running.
So I just think that this idea, because I feel like quarterback longevity is almost overstated. Like, do we really think Daniel Jones is long for this league? Like, he's maybe a good example, not someone I necessarily had as a bust, but he might be someone where, like, if he has a poor season, the Giants might move on and he might never start again. So there's a lot of quarterbacks that aren't necessarily, that are more pocket pass quarterbacks that really don't have that longevity anyway. Like,
well, Daniel Jones can run. He just can't complete an 80-yard run to a touchdown. He's going to trip and fall.
Yeah, that's true too. Young quarterback, they're going to be in the league for 10 years. Okay, they might be in the league for 10 years, but they also might spend half that as a backup. So,
right.
Like, we know exactly, right? So, I mean, Lamar Jackson hasn't signed his big extension yet, but we know that's probably coming soon. And once he does, he's locked in as a starter for probably the next 5 years. And again, probably, outside of an injury, which could happen to any player, you're good. So I think the running quarterback is fragile and not long-term is, I think, a little overstated.
All right, so now moving on to my now player I need to have. All right, so I'm going to go with the rookie here, although I can go with I was really debating who to pick here because I could go with the rookie. I can go with someone who's been in the league for a couple of years, or like I could have picked Dobbins here as well, but we've already taken Dobbins. I won't talk about Dobbins. Kenny Gainwell. I love Kenny Gainwell. I hate the landing spot, but that's neither here nor there. I wish he had gone to the Bucs. But anyway, Kenny Gainwell, he's 22 years old. He's RB 48 currently, his current ADP, which is ridiculous. No, I don't accept this. I will not accept the madness of his value. Kenny Gainwell is the best pass catching back in this class. Like, that's not even an argument. I think his upside is Danny Woodhead. I think it's a fair, good comp from what I see would be Danny Woodhead for me. I think he has great potential. I think in an offense like this, now that we do have if Nick Sirianni is his name, Nick Sirianni came from the Colts. Remember who they used? Nyheim Hines. He even came out and said that they would use him similarly to Nyheim Hines. Now, if that happens, you got yourself a pretty good flex PPR player on your running back on your hands. So my must-own player, now I'm not expecting RB1 or RB2 numbers from this guy out of the gate, but I think he's a high RB3 with potential if used in the passing game, which I expect he will right out of the gate, because there's nobody in that backfield who can pass, who's as good as a pass catcher as he is. The only concern I would say would be his blocking ability. That's the only concern I would have if I have on Wood Gainwell. So with that said, he is my must-own. I have targeted him in every dynasty league that I'm in. Even in redrafts, he's someone I have to have. And he's not a bad option for you guys who do 0 RB late as your RB3. He's not a bad choice to consider in your startup leagues.
Yeah, and I think I was thinking good for his price, right? I know actually Doc was last week we talked about, or 2 weeks ago we talked about rookie drafts with Doc, and he ended up taking him pretty early, like 20, I think it was 203 in a single quarterback league.
Oh wow, 203! Wow.
But which is again,
I've not seen him on that before.
Exactly right. So like that was like super high, but also talked about how much the Doc believes in him. So like, you don't need to take Gainwell at that price. So like there is the upside there where he can, if you are getting him in, like even in a single quarterback league, maybe even into the third round or certainly late second, like you've got upside there to work with. So someone that I have necessarily, again, I'll say like the term must have. I kind of go into drafts not thinking I have to do anything. There's things I should do, and I kind of game to that. So not to say I'm going to have this player in every draft, but just based on his price, like I really like this. If I can kind of guarantee to get him at this price in the really good types of leagues where I like him, David Montgomery. So in this triple Superflex startup we were doing, there's like 0.25 points per carry. He ended up going 606. And I mean, I did choose to pass up on him at the 5-6 turn. Again, I went tight end over running back because of the 2 tight end league. I paired Kittle and Andrews. I was the first guy to get 2 tight ends. Like some people don't even have one yet, and I've already got like 2 guys I know are locked in my lineup. So I went with that advantage in this league. And then I went with Daniel Jones as my third QB, knowing that that's a starting QB. But like outside of that type,
even though we just talked about him being a bust, but okay.
But again, he's the, what is he, the QB? I think he's the QB like 26 off the board. Like it's just this draft was ridiculous. Like most of the first 2 rounds were quarterbacks. Like Stafford went 208. just kind of like to show how like high up he got pushed in a dynasty, right? Like even in the most insane super flex leagues, again, like this one is, that's still a little early, but it seemed like he went ahead of Saquon Barkley, right? Like when would you see Matthew Stafford going ahead of Saquon Barkley in a super flex league? This is the league for it. But still, like for this type of scoring, for Montgomery to go 606, like that's a great value. In the auction startup I did, he was outside the top 12 running backs. I think it was the RB13 in terms of the contract price. Actually, I didn't even count rookies in that. Yeah, like his same value contract price as Najee Harris, for instance. I guess actually, yeah, Williams and Etienne were a bit of value there, but like, he's going in this league. We ended up doing this before the draft. Like James Robinson went for more than David Montgomery, for instance. Like obviously that wouldn't happen now, but it shows us what kind of value Montgomery's still going at, even though he finished as the RB4, RB5 last year. He's certainly not being drafted as it. Like people were wise. So this is probably not going to repeat, but it's swung so far back that like I still think he's a value. So if I could guarantee to get him at this price in drafts, I want him all day.
So let me ask you a few questions that are off the bat, because I have Tariq Cohen as my sleeper, actually. So this transitions perfectly into that. But let me ask you a few questions. So last year he had 247 carries and he had 68 targets. You and I both agree his targets are dropping. Like that's a no-brainer with Tariq Cohen coming back. I think I haven't projected right now, looking at my spreadsheet here, I haven't projected at 35 targets.
Which again, that's like we're talking about like that with Jonathan Taylor. That seems more viable. I also think Justin Fields as a running quarterback might also dump off less to the running back. So 39 seems about right. Like that's like a sub 40 for targets this year might be there, but like that carry amount, I don't see that dropping. Yeah, like I think he could get that again. Especially
really. So you haven't projected between 240 and 250.
Yeah. I like what you're saying for targets. Like, where do you think he's going to come in for carries? Like, you're seeing. I think you're seeing a dip, but how much of a dip?
I'm seeing more around 210, 220 range, and the reason why is because Justin Fields can also run with the ball as well. So and with Tariq Cohen coming back, he did get carries too. So I do think he does impact on a little bit with the carries, and along with Justin Fields, who can run with the ball too. It's not a pocket passer. I think Montgomery does lose around, I would say, 20 to 30 carries in total. Now, another concerning thing about Montgomery, though, even though he finished as, I believe he finished as a top five running back in fantasy, however, fantasy points per touch, per opportunity he was ranked 66th in the league. Like, that's not very good. He needed the volume in order to perform. And also, of course, we all know about his schedule. Near the end of the year, everyone and their mom knew that, okay, last half of the season, his schedule was soft and he's going to score a ton of points. And I looked it up. He did not score less than 20.1 fantasy points in any game from week 12 onwards. That's ridiculous. Like, I don't care how Swiss cheese your schedule is. That's a ridiculous stat in football to do that. 20.1 fantasy points was your floor. That's insane.
Crazy consistency.
What was that?
The crazy consistency, like you love that, but yeah, I get the concerns.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we wouldn't be talking about Derrick Henry that high, would we? But
no, we would not be.
I'm looking at Tariq Cohen. Like he only had 64 carries, and he played all 16 games back in 2019, David Montgomery's rookie season, right? Like, correct. If you ask me that number right now, if you give me that as an over/under, I would probably say under for this year.
Where would you put that?
I could see him maybe getting less than 50 carries just because they him coming off the injury. Like he had 64 carries, but 104 targets. Like I could see that kind of maybe not 104 targets, but like 91 targets the year before. Like that seems viable to me with maybe only, again, 50 carries. Just because
if you take 2018 and 2019 stats, combine them, Tariq Cohen was fourth in the league, fourth in targets and fifth in receptions and yards amongst running backs.
Yeah, makes sense. Again, yeah. What is it? Almost 200 targets over 2 seasons. 195. Yeah, like so that would have been close to probably Kamara, Dalvin Cook.
That's correct. Yeah, Dalvin Cook probably as well, and Saquon Barkley as well probably.
I guess with the injuries, I know. Yeah, he got a ton of targets his rookie year. He ended up with like 80 catches, so yeah, he would have had to have targets. But yeah, so I also think maybe it's similar to Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, where they're both on the field at the same time. Like I see Cohen is kind of that type of role.
Yeah, but
Maybe
also keep in mind, no other receiver outside of Allen Robinson and at times Mooney were performing. Of course, a lot of that has to do because of the quarterback play. But with an improved quarterback, with improved weapons around him now with Tariq Cohen and Mooney expected to take that next leap in his sophomore year, it's not just about the running game anymore. It's also the pass catching that's going to improve. And with that improvement, the running game will take a little bit of a hit, but you're banking then on the efficiency. I trust PPR more than just carries. Give me Tariq Cohen at his value, which is very, very low in startup dynasty, and even for trade value. Cohen, nobody wants to. I mean, I think you can get Tariq Cohen for a late second. I mean, or late to mid second. I think late second is a little bit too pushing it a little too much. I would say mid second. I think you can still get Tariq Cohen, who, remember, not too long ago was RB1 in fantasy.
Yeah. Talking single quarterback, yeah, you probably could get it even a late second. With the injury, I'm sure at points last year might have been able to get him for a third. Now that the season's coming, he seems like the very clear number 2 running back there. And I mean, do we really think do we think Anthony Miller is going to get more targets than Tariq Cohen? Like the weapons, we expect maybe Cole Kmet to step up. Maybe that's what impacts him more. But yeah, so I'm guessing you're probably saying the same thing. Like you think Taylor's a bust, so you probably really like Nyheim Hines' price then.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Nyheim Hines, Tariq Cohen, like their price is absolutely is something that I'm targeting. I want all pieces of. Now remember, these are running backs who are going to be your flex. They're not going to be your RB2. You don't want them as your RB2 or your RB1 for that matter. They are your RB3s and 4s in this case. Well, they're not going to get RB4. Tariq Cohen might end up being your RB4. His value is really low in startup right now. It's someone that you do want to target. Remember, we're talking about dynasty here, so age also does come into play here. So in Tariq Cohen's case, Tariq Cohen is only 25 years old, and he's ranked 60. Like that's
only 264 carries in his career. He almost as many. He has 209 receptions, right? So less than 500 touches so far for a 4-year career. 3 games last year. He didn't miss a single game in his career before getting injured. 16 games all 3 seasons the year before. So we think of him, and again, the low mileage, but he's not this fragile creature that breaks every time he touches the football. I mean, he's gone through a lot of receptions certainly in his career, and I mean, you still get hit when you're catching the football. Like DBs come in with a lot of speed. It's not that he's catching, he's safe. Christian McCaffrey last year, pretty sure his season-ending injury when the collarbone was on a reception. So, it's not just because you're catching that you're running the football that you're going to get hurt. So I guess my sleeper quickly, it's kind of a combo of two. Like the sleeper breakout player. I'm just going to say both of these guys are both this. Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. I mean, they brought in Matt Breida, but they really didn't add much competition. And I think both of them are just going so low that both are actually of value. And I think the key is pick your lane, make your bet. You play in enough leagues, you're probably diversify and get shares of both. But I think from an individual standpoint, they're players where you can just kind of, similar to Tariq Cohen, you can add them as your RB4 as kind of your depth rotation pieces. And when Buffalo's got good matchups where you think they're going to run the football a lot, you play them then. You probably don't want to have them on the same team. So you go into every draft probably almost thinking I wonder in some drafts if Singletary goes first and Moss goes second, and you just kind of cherry pick it and see who's going cheaper, and you just grab that guy cheaper. Like that
Moss
might be
the best value right now. They're both 23 years old, and Moss is actually ranked 41, and Singletary 22. So you're getting Moss significantly cheaper.
Yeah, no, if there's that much. You see, I would have thought their prices were going to be closer because I'm seeing I guess we'll find out this startup where how high they go. It'll probably be a while. I don't think in the auction either got. I'll take a look at that quick, but I don't think either of them actually got drafted in the auction, so I don't really have a reference point there. No, neither. Tariq Cohen, $5 actually. So he was a pretty good value there. But neither of the Bills guy got nominated in the auction. So they're both technically free agents. So I guess the drafts I've been in, they're not a good viewpoint of both Moss and Singletary.
You know what's crazy? So Nyheim Hines ranked 51. Tariq Cohen ranked 60. Remember, listeners, and
51. Yeah,
this is dynasty rankings we're talking about here. Nyheim Hines 51, Tariq Cohen ranked 60. Devin Singletary ranked 22, Zach Moss 41. Like, this is some solid value. Now, I'm not a Zach Moss truther. I'm all about PPR, everybody. So if you're a pass catching back, I'm a little bit higher on you than not. So
Moss 18
is value, but forget about Moss. Go down the list and you see Nyheim Hines at 51. What? Like,
that's true.
You can wait. You can skip both of them and go with Tariq Cohen and Nyheim Hines. But go ahead.
Probably get more targets. I mean, Singletary's had what, like basically about half of what Cohen's targets. Maybe not quite, but I think because I'm looking 50 targets last year, and I think he had about that in his rookie season too. So I guess with that pass catching upside I guess that's the reason why he's going ahead of Moss, even though Moss more than doubled Singletary's touchdowns, and it seems like he was more the goal line guy. So it's with those two, it's really picking your preference. But again, if like the prices are reflecting what those rankings are saying, and there's a 20 RB difference between the two, then yeah, Moss is definitely the pick there. But like you said, I like Nyheim Hines probably more than both, or at least certainly more than Moss. So to get that value at RB51 is crazy. I don't know if that's a true reflection of drafts, but if it is, yeah, Hines might be the best value running back out Yeah, I just traded for him. I gave up. It's a Devy league. Like it's a Devy rookie combined draft. Each year there's only there's 6 rounds of the draft, but only 18 Devy players max can be taken. So like this year, like for instance, we've got like Javonte Williams, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, like the big rookies that are there. But anyway, I gave up my 2022 second to get Nyheim Hines, and there's a bit of a point per carry PPR. So like some running back scarcity, and so I just I'm kind of committing my running back 2 in that league. Like I've got Zeke as my RB1, and then I've got like Hines, Gus Edwards, like Latavius Murray, again with a bit of point per carry. I'm just getting any guys that can get carries. I'm kind of throwing them in there and investing higher in like Calvin Ridley, and it's a 2 tight end league, so I've got Travis Kelce. So like prioritize those positions, but the RB2 kind of by committee. And I traded for Nyheim Hines, and I legit think he's probably my RB2 on my team. So like if you can get a legit RB2 at RB51 price, like that's when he really should be probably a top 25 RB. Like that's great to me. So actually, you've changed my answer. My answer is Hines instead. With
Buffalo was ranked 26th in the league amongst rushing attempts at 24.5. So this is not running backs. This is all rushing attempts. So we're including Josh Allen's rushing attempts as well. Whereas in the passing department, they were ranked, I believe it was 10th in the league with 37 attempts per game. So that
makes me want Singletary, right? Makes me want the guy getting 50 targets more than Zach Moss in the goal line. Yeah,
I do agree with that. I'm going to end this on a note for some tight end love, man. Like this, we're not giving the tight ends any love here, man. Tyler Higbee, like not a single team. No one cares about the tight end. No one cares. It's all about Pitts. Everybody forgets who else is in the league now. Like, do we even know who the tight ends are in the league anymore? Tyler Higbee. Okay, let me talk about him for a second. We all know what he did when Everett was not on the field. He was a start and forget type tight end when Everett was not on the field. Everett's no longer there. And they have not added any depth at the position that threatens Higbee's load. He is now the starting and should see majority of the offensive snaps, which he did actually last year. He saw at least, I think all year, he saw at least 61.1% of the offensive snaps every single game. Every game of the year, Everett or no Everett. This guy is somebody you need to own in your dynasty leagues at his ridiculous price. He's practically free almost. He's going near the bottom of dynasty drafts in startups as well, and his trade value is super cheap. You can probably use a 3rd round rookie pick to actually trade for him. So if you can, I would definitely go out and try getting him. If you look at the target distribution for him as well, he did command a pretty decent target share of the amongst tight ends. Now, for the offense that he was on, it's only 11.3 because he was sharing it with Everett. But even when he was sharing, he was getting 11.3% of the target share of the entire offense, 11.8 of it coming in the red zone. So he was pretty much used in the red zone too. The question you have to ask yourself is this. The Rams no longer have Goff. didn't really chuck the ball much down deep down the field. Now they have Stafford. Now, before last year, I think last year's an outlier. You should not use last year as a barometer because it was Hawkinson and nothing. That was really it. And Marvin Jones. Not nothing. But okay, fine, Marvin Jones. But this year, he has Woods. He has Cobb. He has Akers. Like, this dude has an weapon. You can argue overall, now, yes, he's played with Megatron. I get that. But overall, I think, and now, yes, he's also played with Marvin Jones and Tate in their primes. But I think overall, this is the best offensive team he's been on. If you also consider the coaching staff as well, it's not going to get any better than this. The question also you have to ask yourself, okay, is Stafford going to target Higbee enough to make him valuable where he can enter the top 10, tight end top 10s? I think he has potential to hit I think his ceiling is tight end 6-7 range is where I'm putting him at from a dynasty standpoint. And this is a bit bold, but hell, it's 8:30. I want to be bold, and I'm being bold. I don't care anymore. So I think he's somebody at his value, at his ADP, at his ranking, is someone you want to target and you want to have. I think is going to have a breakout season. I think even a better season than what he had last year. Kyle, you disagree? You can crucify me all you like. What do you think?
So, we're doing, you're talking sleeper especially here, right?
Yes.
So I listed my sleepers, and I actually, for tight ends, again, we didn't know who was going to take who, so it was good to have backups. I actually had Higbee as my number 2, so it's good to get to talk about both my top 2, because I actually do like him. I know Fantasy Pros has him ranked at tight end 18. Like, this is just I'll do the exercise with you. I'm going to go up from Higbee, go up like from 18, start to go to 17, 16, and see which tight end you'd want ahead of him. So starting with Higbee, Austin Hooper.
Higbee.
Cole Kmet.
Higbee.
Logan Thomas.
Whew. I love Logan Thomas, but this is Dynasty. I'm going Higbee because remember, outside of Fitzmagic, now this is redraft. My answer is totally different. In Dynasty, this Fitzmagic and then Heineke. I love Heineke, by the way, another sleeper of mine. But they only signed him to a 2-year deal. He's not there long term. I don't know if he's the long-term answer, although he's very impressive with the Bucs. But right now, for Dynasty, I gotta go with Higbee.
I agree with you on all these, by the way, up to this point. Evan Ingram?
Oh, Higbee. I hate Evan Ingram.
You see, he's maybe the one I'll pause on, but I think I'd still go Higbee. I just more faith in the offense, also competition, right? Like, Brandon Cooks, when Brandon Cooks was there, and it was Woods, Kupp, and Cooks, it was really tough for anyone else to get anything consistent outside of those three because those three were commanding so much, and Todd Gurley was carrying the ball so much. But since Cooks is gone, I mean, they've had Josh Reynolds, and now it's Van Jefferson, now it's Tutu Atwell. Like, I think Higbee's probably going to be number 3 on that team in targets, unless maybe Cam Akers commands so many targets out of the backfield, because we know Stafford does love to throw to the running back. So, like, I feel like Akers is maybe the biggest threat to him, but like, whereas Ingram, with Golladay and Shepard and like, I could still see him maybe being top 2 or 3, but more efficient offense. So I go Higbee as well.
Kyle Rudolph. I'm sure Kyle Rudolph didn't go there to block. I'm sure he went there because he wants to catch some damn passes too.
I mean, he doesn't really. Well, I mean, he didn't really catch. He signed contracts in Minnesota knowing he wasn't going to catch many passes. I'm not. I don't think Rudolph's the reason. I think it's Golladay. I think that's the reason where Ingram isn't going to get that many targets.
And also Golladay. Remember when has Ingram produced when he wasn't the number 1 target?
Exactly. It was his rookie season when everyone else was hurt, and it was amazing. Exactly. Like, really, for a tight end, it's an incredible rookie season, really, because like it's almost outlierish. Like, he's like, his rookie season from a tight end is like basically 99th percentile in terms of like fantasy production from a rookie tight end. Like, you don't see that, but he hasn't lived up to that. But so yeah, I'd go Higbee as well. Keeping up, it's the Patriot. They have both the Patriots guys listed, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. I would assume you're both Higbee ahead of both. I love Jonnu Smith, but yeah, Robert.
Just a quick note, I do agree. I will have Higbee ahead of both in Dynasty. However, for listeners, my if I had to pick between these two, if you're thinking, who should I own? If you have to own, I go with Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry is the better blocking tight end. And now, also, I do think, and that's why I think Jonnu Smith will have more opportunity to pass catches. I think they both will do well. I have them both 10 to 12 range, tight end 10 to tight end 12. I don't think they're going to be I don't think they had many touchdowns amongst the tight ends, but I do think that Jonnu Smith has the highest upside out of the two because of that. But I have Higbee ahead of both.
I'm just thinking the athletic freak that is Jonnu Smith. He'll be more efficient with his touches than Hunter Henry. Like Hunter Henry really, like last year really banked on how efficient Justin Herbert was as throwing to kind of up his game. Not
only that, but Jonnu Smith after the catch can actually create space and what do you call it? Evade tackle. I mean, not evade tackles, but more like have a few defenders
force missed tackles.
So I do prefer Jonnu Smith over him.
I'm curious to see how Josh McDaniels is going to use it, because I know everyone's talking about Gronk and Hernandez, but like Jonnu Smith's a different level of speed athlete than both of them. Like this is
neither of them were the Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is, you can make an argument Jonnu Smith is the best athletic tight end that the Patriots have had.
Because you could make the argument he might be the best athletic tight end in the league right now. That one gives me pause. But I still think but we'd still both go Higbee over Jonnu Smith, though.
Agreed.
Yeah. Next is Robert Tonyan.
Higbee.
Yeah, I agree. And then number 10 right now in the rankings is Irv Smith.
Higbee.
And that actually leads into my bust, or one of my busts is Irv Smith. Just because at that price, that's a little ridiculous. I think I might almost prefer Jonnu Smith because, really, Kirk Cousins hasn't thrown to his tight ends very often. I mean, Jordan Reed, yes, but Jordan Reed was also like the alpha on that team. Like
he was the alpha.
Justin Jefferson's already come in and totally Irv Smith was there the year before. Like Cousins had more time to throw to him, and suddenly Justin Smith came on and just immediately emerged. Right, so we know Irv Smith's probably fourth on that team in targets max, and that could mean 50 targets, right? So I definitely like the upside of Higbee, because Higbee might also only get 50 targets, but I guess Stafford, Cousins, both efficient quarterbacks. Like I guess I could almost see the argument, but I also think Higbee has more of an upside to maybe get to 80, 90 targets.
Well, keep in mind,
really don't see that with Smith.
Remember, also the Vikings were considering Justin to draft Fields as he was dropping, they communicated that to their Cousins. So. There was a moment where they actually thought about. No, was it Fields? There was a quarter.
Well, Fields wasn't falling, so that would make sense. Like maybe they wanted to trade up instead of the Bears. Like, okay, we got to keep this quarterback away from the Bears.
But they did consider it, so they are thinking about a future without Kirk Cousins.
Well, so they drafted Kellen Mond, right? So
that's correct. They did draft Kellen Mond, who I really like, and I think is a great landing spot for him, given his style of play. So. Keep in mind, Kirk Cousins, he may have a couple of more years, or maybe this might be his last year too. I'll have to look up what his contract details are.
I think it's pretty tough. I think he's there for the next 2 years. Like they don't really I think next year it's like a $40 million cap hit, and they don't save anything by cutting him. Like it's basically all guaranteed. So, but then it's done. Like that's the end of his contract. So
you're right.
He might only have 2 years left.
Guaranteed. You're right.
Like they might if they like what they see from Kellen Mond through 2 years, they might say no, we're just moving on from Cousins, and then I don't think that kills his dynasty value, because I think he's good enough. He'll start somewhere else. Like it's not like we were worried about Daniel Jones, right? Like
he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, like if Daniel Jones flames out, he might lose the job type thing. He might not be able to get another job. Like that it's that type of thing with the guys on the rookie contracts, right? But like Cousins has gotten so much invested already from NFL teams. Like multiple teams are willing to pay him tons of money. So like that shows. So yeah, so Irv Smith is my bust at that price, but really he's my number 2 bust. I don't know. Do you want to get to your tight end bust now that we've talked up Tyler Higbee? Is like, I think based on our rankings, we have him as a top 10 tight end, because like I already got like Irv Smith is 10, and I only really argued with it over one, and it was Evan Ingram. So, like, I think pretty clear Tyler Higbee is a top 10 tight end. And if he's going at tight end 18 or even close to tight end 20, that's huge value. So I love that.
Tight end bust for me. So I thought about going a few ways here, but you know what? I'm going to have to go Noah Fant. And here's why. It's not because of his talent. It's not because of the QB play. It's because I think Judy takes his next step. I think Sutton coming back will also hurt his opportunity. I do think that more efficient running back play will help us as well with Devonta Smith there. I think them sharing that backfield will actually help spread the offense a little bit more. And I think that'll take opportunities away from Fant, because Judy is better than Fant, athletically speaking, and from a skill set, and also Sutton. Sutton's the best receiver on that team. I think we both agree with that. I hate the fact they moved on from Deshaun Hamilton, because I really liked him. But I do think because of opportunity, I think at his current price, and even if they upgrade at quarterback, I don't think Noah Fant will be able to live up to his current rank of number 7, the number 7 dynasty tight end. I would have Goddard ahead of him. I have Higbee ahead of him. I even have Gesicki ahead of him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's all one big tier I almost want to avoid. Like, because I feel like Higbee, like Higbee's the cheap, like the outlier there. He's going way cheaper, it seems like, than Gesicki and Goddard and Fant. Like, I think I might actually have Fant ahead of all of them, but I also have it as a massive tier break after the top 5. Maybe I'll include Pitts and say top 6. It's so like I don't want to be. I don't really want to be drafting Fant where he's going in terms of like 8th, 7th, 8th round. Like I want to. Last year it was Jonnu Smith in the 12th. Like, is it Tyler Higbee in the 12th? Like, if you could get that, like I want that all day. So I like Jerry Jeudy. I think yes, because Jerry Jeudy after only one season already had more targets last year than Noah Fant. So like that was already clear, like right off the bat. I mean, and Noah Fant had more catches, right? Like Jerry Jeudy's catch rate was horrendous, and yet he was still getting those targets just because of his ability to get open. Like, if he works on that and catches the ball, I think he's fine. I'm not convinced about Sutton coming off the ACL tear. I kind of view Sutton as just another guy. Like, so I don't really think.
Really?
Yeah, I could see Fant out targeting Sutton coming back, to be honest, but I am discounting because of the quarterback play. Like I think that's brutal. And yeah, if they get Aaron Rodgers, which I don't think is happening, by the way, but if like the 5% chance, even that's high, but like that happens, then yeah, maybe I could start elevating Fant as like maybe the clear tight end 7 is kind of in his own tier, but I still don't really want to. I'm very much go early or go super late, and that leads me into my tight end that I must have. Just because I feel like normally the mid rounds, like the 6th, 7th, 8th round for tight ends is usually a death zone that I usually want to avoid. I feel like so many people are starting to say that, though, that I might actually zag because it seems like Mark Andrews is starting to fall. Like even in that 2 tight end Sons of Dynasty draft I did, he was 5'10". Like that's pretty good value for me which I have the guy I have as my tight end 4 in Dynasty. And I'm back and forth between him and Hawkinson just because I think both of them are the top guys on their teams in terms of targets. But like to me, I feel like it's Kyle Pitts is going ahead of him in startups. Like I don't like that. Like I'd much rather have Andrews, knowing that I've seen him get targets. Oh yeah, I want the production of tight ends. What he's done over the last 2 years, he's been like incredibly efficient and pretty solid touchdown numbers. And that's really what we're looking for in tight ends, right? Like he's getting enough targets to not be touchdown dependent, but he's also getting the touchdowns to really elevate him. So I'll take the guy that's been a perennial difference maker at tight end. Cause like everyone talks about like, okay, he wasn't what Kelsey was, but like the top 5 in the scrums, he's in that top 5 and he has been for the last 2 years. I don't see him not being there. So I'd rather bank on the known of Andrews than pay up for Pitts, but I'd rather have, straight up, I'd rather have Andrews over Pitts, but like, I'm not even having to make that decision because he's going later than Pitts. Like Pitts has already surpassed Andrews. So at that price, I'll take I'll take Andrews all day. So that's why he's my must have.
And by the way, to support your point, because I do see your point here, the target share for Mark Andrews in 2019 he was ranked number 3 amongst all tight ends with 24.1%. And then the following year, which is last year, 24.9%, which is ranked 3rd. He had targets 89 last year, and the year prior he had 98. So very consistent usage. His route participation, which is the percentage of routes that he actually ran amongst all tight ends with the offense, in 2019 was 51.1%, which is ranked 23rd. And then last year, it just skyrockets. This just shows you how much the opportunity is there for Mark Andrews. It skyrockets to 89.2%, which is 5th amongst all tight ends. So even though his target share didn't go up, it actually dropped by nine, but the amount of routes he ran increased significantly by over 30%. So the opportunity is definitely there. I do see your point. A little bit surprised that you have him ranked as high as you do. But I mean, I guess that's what debating is all about.
Well, and then that's why I think because he is going solo, to me, like I'm viewing him higher than where he is being drafted. That's why I'm saying like he's a must-have, because I do think he is coming in at such a value, even though some people might think he's actually going too high. And I think that's the perfect mix, right? Is when people kind of see it and it's a reach, and I'm thinking, oh, it's a value, then it must cross over somewhere. So that's why Andrews is my guy for that anyway. I'm curious to hear who's yours.
We are over time, so we do have to cut this short. But one little stat about Jerry Jeudy for you, because you bashed him, you infidel, you. His catch rate, by the way, was so low because you know how many balls thrown to him were considered catchable? 62.8%. That's 71 of his mammoth, I must say. What do you call it? The targets, 100 out of 113 targets, 71 of his targets were considered catchable. That's 62.8%, which ranks 105th amongst all wide receivers. So what?
But that's not going to get better though, either. Like, do we think that? I mean, maybe slightly
get better. But
yeah, if Bridgewater's in.
With Sutton coming back, though, I think that's going to definitely impact his usage. I don't think it'll be, and I think the defense will actually be improved. Remember, Von Miller was hurt as well last year, so with him back, I think, and they did add some pretty good players in the draft as well. So I do think the defense is going to be improved. I think the opportunity share will go down a little bit, but you're going to be banking on efficiency if you're going to be expecting some improvement from these players, and efficiency across the board from the receivers and the pass catchers. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. With that said,
I don't want to overinvest in Denver this year. That's my thing.
I am not touching Denver personally. I think Sutton's going to be too high for me in startup dynasties. But if there's one player I am targeting, I'd be happy with Sutton. But I don't mind Judy's cost right now because it's so low. I think in startups he's worth a flyer. He's very young. This is only his second year, so I think there is room to improve. And Denver historically has addressed the quarterback position one way or another. So I do have faith in their office to actually turn their QB situation around. Granted, they hit 1 out of every 10 times, but they will hit eventually. All right, Judy's still in the second year. All right. With that said, we are over time. This was awesome, man. I'm glad. I'm just glad to be back and talk fantasy football, man. This is so awesome. But with that said, Kyle, my man, this was fun. I can't wait to talk to you again in 2 weeks. Let everyone know where they can find you and to tell us a little bit about the other shows that you do.
So I'm at Senra Says. You can follow me on Twitter there. I also co-host the Full Press Fantasy Pod. That's outside of Going for Two. You can follow the podcast at FPC_Fantasy Pod. But on top of now co-hosting the Dynasty Gambit, really happy to be part of this. Also host the Press Coverage podcast. It's on every Monday the same week. So I just recorded an episode 3 days ago. So it's always the same week. So looking at every 2 weeks, Monday I'll be on Press Coverage. On that Thursday I'll be here on the Dynasty Gambit. But always look for every Monday on Going for Two because I alternate weeks. I do press coverage. Gladys Louise Tyler does the 2-point conversion. So definitely check everything out Going for Two at Going for Two and on Twitter and at Going for Two Live for all the updates about the live shows.
All right. And of course, I am FF Junkie A5, your host, Hamid Sandhu on the Dynasty Gambit. You can find me on goingfor2.com and also during the season at 11:30 with Gladys, telling you who to start, who to sit, and talk a lot of trash with Jared, the Ryan Tannehill lover. Miss you, my man. Hope you're well. Everyone, so we're signing out. This was a lot of fun, Kyle. I'll see you in 2 weeks, brother. Take it easy.